I still remember the exact sound the garage door made that morning. A low mechanical groan followed by the soft click of her car pulling away. My name is Daniel Whitaker. I'm 44, a high school history teacher who still believes stories matter more than dates. Elena and I had been married for 14 years. We had one daughter, Sophie, 12 years old, who played the violin so beautifully it sometimes made the neighbors stop mowing their lawns just to listen. Our house sat on a quiet cul-de-sac in Maplewood, always smelling faintly of vanilla candles Elena loved and the cinnamon rolls I attempted every Sunday. That particular Tuesday started like hundreds before it. Elena stood in the kitchen in her charcoal gray blazer, hair pinned up neatly, coffee mug in hand. She leaned over and kissed me. Quick, warm, familiar. Her lips tasted like the strawberry lip balm she'd used for years. "Have a good day, Danny," she said, squeezing my shoulder. "Don't forget Sophie has orchestra practice until 6. "I won't," I answered, watching her walk to the garage. The morning light caught the silver streak in her dark hair that she refused to dye. She looked exactly like the woman I had fallen in love with at 28. The door closed. The car engine hummed to life. Then silence. I stood at the sink rinsing our mugs, the warm water running over my hands, when something small and irrational nudged me. For the first time in years, I noticed she hadn't said, "I love you," before leaving. She always said it. Always. I told myself I was being ridiculous. 14 years of marriage will make anyone sensitive to tiny changes. Later that evening, after I picked up Sophie from practice, her violin case bumping against my leg as we walked to the car, the cold evening air sharp in our lungs, Elena still wasn't home. She texted at 7:12 p.m., "Client dinner running late. Don't wait up. Love you." Sophie and I ate leftover lasagna at the kitchen island under the warm pendant light. She chattered about a boy who kept staring at her during rehearsal. I smiled in all the right places, but my mind kept drifting to that missing "I love you" from the morning. At 10:47 p.m., Elena finally walked through the front door. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, and she carried the faint scent of red wine and something else, a woody, masculine cologne that definitely wasn't mine. She kissed my forehead, the same spot as always. "Sorry, honey. These mergers never end when they're supposed to." I nodded, but as she headed upstairs to shower, I caught her slipping her laptop into her work bag a little too quickly. That night, while Elena slept beside me, her breathing slow and even, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan turning lazy circles in the dark. The house was quiet except for the occasional creak of settling wood. Something felt wrong. Not dramatically wrong, just off. Like the first wrong note in a piece Sophie had practiced perfectly for weeks. The next morning, after Elena left for work again, I sat down at her desk to print something for school. Her laptop was still open from the night before. A folder named Tax Documents 2025 sat innocently on the desktop. I clicked it without thinking. Inside were no tax files, only dozens of videos and photos dated over the last 8 months. Daniel begins the story in a state of comfortable attachment, where 14 years of marriage have created a predictable emotional baseline. Elena's small deviation, omitting "I love you," triggers an immediate but suppressed sense of unease, illustrating how long-term partners develop hypersensitivity to microchanges as an early warning system. Her quick kiss, familiar routines, and plausible explanation for lateness serve as camouflage, allowing Daniel's denial to remain intact. The woody cologne and hurried laptop movement plant subtle seeds of suspicion without immediate alarm. Psychologically, this opening reveals Daniel's pattern of rationalization rooted in fear of disrupting family stability, especially with a preteen daughter whose innocence depends on the illusion of parental harmony. Elena's behavior suggests possible compartmentalization, maintaining the role of devoted wife while engaging in a secret life that fulfills unmet needs. The discovery of the mislabeled folder represents the first crack in Daniel's constructed reality, highlighting how betrayal often hides in plain sight behind everyday normalcy. This sets up the classic tension between attachment security and emerging threat perception. Life continued its comfortable rhythm while small fractures quietly spread. Mornings still began with coffee and Sophie's violin scales floating through the house. Elena would rush around in her tailored suits, kissing us both before disappearing into her world as a senior financial advisor at a prestigious firm downtown. She had received a big promotion 8 months earlier, the same time the hidden folder had begun filling up. One Thursday evening, I came home from parent-teacher conferences to find Elena already cooking. The kitchen smelled of roasted garlic and rosemary chicken. Sophie was setting the table, humming. Everything looked perfect. "How was the big client meeting today?" I asked, loosening my tie. Elena smiled over her shoulder, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Exhausting. We closed the deal, though. Everyone went out for celebratory drinks afterward." She turned back to the stove, but I noticed her left hand trembled slightly as she stirred the sauce. A tiny detail, easy to dismiss. Later that night, while Sophie practiced violin in her room, I sat on the couch pretending to grade papers. Elena's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She snatched it quickly, read the message, and typed a reply with rapid thumbs. When I asked casually who it was, she answered without looking up, "Just Marcus from the team confirming tomorrow's agenda." Marcus, a name I had heard before, her colleague who had recently transferred from the London office. Tall, charming, according to office Christmas party stories. The next red herring arrived on Saturday. Elena said she needed to go into the office for a few hours to finish an urgent report. I offered to drop her off since her car was in the shop for an oil change. She insisted on taking an Uber instead. "You have papers to grade, and Sophie wants to bake cookies with you. Don't worry about me." I watched the Uber pull away from the living room window, the afternoon sun slanting through the blinds. Something about the way she clutched her laptop bag felt off. That evening, she returned smelling faintly of the same woody cologne. When I mentioned it lightly while we folded laundry together, the warm scent of fabric softener filling the room, she laughed. "Oh, Marcus wears that awful stuff. The whole team teases him about it. I must have sat next to him in the meeting." Her explanation was smooth, believable, but the hidden folder haunted me. I hadn't opened any of the files yet. Part of me was terrified of what I might find. Another part hoped it really was just old tax documents, somehow mislabeled. Sophie started mentioning Mom's new friend Marcus in passing, how he sent her a funny meme about violins, how Mom laughed really hard when she showed him a video of Sophie playing. Innocent comments that landed like small stones in still water. One night, I woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of Elena typing furiously on her phone under the covers, the blue light glowing faintly. When I stirred, she immediately put the phone down and turned toward me, sliding her arm around my waist. Her body felt warm, familiar, yet the gesture felt calculated for the first time in our marriage. I lay there listening to her breathing slow into sleep, the ceiling fan clicking softly above us, wondering how long we could keep pretending everything was fine. The following Monday, Elena left her laptop at home by accident. When I opened it to check my school email, the tax documents 2025 folder was still there, and this time it showed a newly added video file timestamp just 2 days earlier. Daniel's central mistake in this section is classic avoidance. He chooses plausible explanations over uncomfortable inquiry, allowing small inconsistencies, missing "I love you," cologne scent, quick phone replies, to accumulate without confrontation. This reveals a deep-seated fear of rocking the boat in a long, seemingly stable marriage, especially with a child involved. Elena's mistake lies in overconfidence in her cover stories and compartmentalization, believing she can maintain both her secret emotional and possibly physical involvement with Marcus while preserving the image of the perfect wife and mother. The red herrings, team drinks, Uber excuse, awful cologne joke successfully delay Daniel's full awakening. Sophie's innocent mentions act as unintended catalysts, heightening emotional stakes without her awareness. The lesson emerging is painful but universal. Unaddressed micro-betrayals erode trust faster than grand lies. Daniel learns that silence in the face of doubt is itself a form of self-betrayal. Elena's actions demonstrate how unmet emotional needs, when hidden rather than discussed, can lead to dangerous external attachments. This phase shows how ordinary life can mask extraordinary deception until the weight of evidence becomes impossible to ignore. Suspicion grew slowly, like frost spreading across a window pane, beautiful from a distance, deadly up close. Elena's late nights increased. Her laughter at home became brighter, but somehow hollow. She started dressing with more care, new blouses with slightly lower necklines, a new perfume that carried hints of sandalwood and vanilla. When I complimented her, she blushed and said it was for an important client presentation. I began noticing patterns. Every time she mentioned Marcus, her posture changed, shoulders slightly straighter, a small unconscious touch to her hair. One evening she came home with a delicate gold bracelet I had never seen before. When I asked about it, she said it was a thank you gift from the team for landing the biggest account of the year. The hidden folder called to me like a locked door I both feared and needed to open. One rainy afternoon while Sophie was at violin lesson, I finally clicked on the most recent video file. It was Elena and Marcus, not in an office, in what looked like a stylish hotel room. They were laughing, glasses of wine in hand. Then they kissed, slow, deep, intimate. The kind of kiss that carried years of built-up tension. The video continued. Clothes came off. The sounds and images left no room for interpretation. I slammed the laptop shut, heart hammering so hard I felt dizzy. The rain pounded against the windows, matching the roar in my ears. That night I said nothing. I cooked dinner, helped Sophie with math homework, kissed Elena when she came home. But inside, something fundamental had cracked. I started piecing together timelines. The promotion 8 months ago. The sudden increase in client dinners. The way Elena sometimes stared at her phone with a secret smile when she thought I wasn't looking. New red herrings appeared to confuse me further. Elena's best friend, Rachel, called one evening and mentioned how proud she was of Elena for finally taking time for herself. When I asked what she meant, Rachel backtracked quickly, saying it was about Elena joining a new yoga studio. Was Rachel covering for her? Or was I becoming paranoid? Sophie began having trouble sleeping, complaining of bad dreams about the family breaking apart. Children sense emotional earthquakes long before adults admit them. I installed a discrete location tracker on Elena's phone during a moment she left it charging. The guilt was crushing, but the need to know was stronger. The tracker showed her visiting a boutique hotel downtown on 3 different afternoons when she had claimed to be in back-to-back meetings. Every affectionate gesture from Elena now carried poison. When she reached for me in bed one night, her touch felt both familiar and foreign. I made love to my wife while images from the video played behind my eyes. The betrayal cut deeper because part of me still loved her desperately. 2 days later, Elena told me she had to fly to Chicago for an emergency client meeting over the weekend. The tracker showed no flight booked. Instead, it showed her car parked overnight at the same downtown hotel, with Marcus's car parked right beside it. Daniel expected the safety and predictability that 14 years of marriage had always provided: shared routines, mutual respect, and emotional fidelity. Reality delivered the opposite: a carefully constructed double life hidden behind professional success and maternal warmth. The contrast between Elena's outward devotion and the explicit video evidence creates profound cognitive dissonance, forcing Daniel into painful psychological contortions. Earlier expectations of partnership have been replaced by the reality of being an unwitting supporting character in someone else's secret narrative. Red herrings involving Rachel and the yoga studio further blur the line between trust and paranoia. Sophie's nightmares serve as an emotional mirror, reflecting the family tension Daniel tries to hide. This stage marks the death of illusion. Daniel can no longer rationalize away the evidence. The contrast highlights how betrayal weaponizes intimacy. The same woman who kisses him goodbye is the same one sharing her body and laughter with another man. Daniel's growing suspicion transforms love into a source of torment, setting the stage for the inevitable confrontation. I became a detective in my own marriage, hating every second of it. While Elena was supposedly in Chicago, I drove to the hotel. The lobby smelled of fresh lilies and expensive coffee. I sat in the corner with a newspaper, heart pounding, until I saw them. Elena and Marcus walking through the lobby laughing, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. They didn't even try to hide it. I took photos with my phone, hands shaking so badly the images were slightly blurred. Back home, I went through bank statements, credit card records, hotel receipts I found in her work bag. The paper trail painted a clear picture of an 8-month affair that had begun shortly after her promotion. Secret weekends disguised as business trips, expensive gifts, late-night calls logged as client strategy sessions. Sophie stayed with my parents for the weekend so I could think clearly. The empty house echoed with memories: Elena's laughter, Sophie's violin, our family dinners. Now it felt like a crime scene. I found more videos. Some were tender, some were passionate. In one, Elena told Marcus she had never felt this alive in years. The words cut deeper than any physical image. A secondary twist emerged when I discovered Elena had been secretly transferring small amounts of money into a separate account, not for luxury, but apparently to help Marcus with his messy divorce. Financial betrayal layered on top of emotional and physical betrayal. I confronted Rachel over coffee. She broke down and admitted she had known for 4 months, but stayed silent because Elena had begged her not to destroy the family. Another layer of loyalty conflict. Every new piece of evidence felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. Yet I still hesitated to confront her. Part of me desperately wanted her to have a believable explanation that could make everything right again. The night Elena returned from her Chicago trip, she brought me flowers and a new watch. Guilt gifts, I now realized. As we sat on the couch, she took my hand and said, "I think we need to talk about something important." For one wild second, I hoped she was going to confess everything. Instead, she said, "I want us to renew our vows this summer. Start fresh." This section crosses multiple irreversible stages. The moment Daniel watches Elena and Marcus in the hotel lobby marks the death of plausible deniability. Discovering the financial transfers and hearing Elena's recorded words about feeling alive with another man constitute emotional points of no return. Rachel's confession adds another layer of betrayal by proxy. Daniel's hesitation to confront, despite overwhelming proof, reveals the powerful grip of hope and fear even in the face of clear evidence. The secondary financial secrecy subplot converges with the main affair, complicating Daniel's perception of Elena from unfaithful wife to someone capable of calculated deception on multiple levels. Sophie's temporary absence from the home intensifies the psychological pressure, turning the house into a space of painful reflection. These accumulated discoveries transform Daniel from passive husband to active gatherer of truth, fundamentally altering his identity within the marriage. Reconciliation becomes nearly impossible after the vow renewal suggestion, which now reads as cruel manipulation rather than genuine desire. The chain reaction of lies exposing more lies illustrates how one secret inevitably unravels an entire constructed reality. I waited until Sophie was asleep. We sat at the kitchen table under the same pendant light that had witnessed countless family meals. Elena still wore the silk blouse from work. I placed printed screenshots, hotel receipts, and my phone showing the latest tracker location on the table between us. Her face went pale. For several long seconds, the only sound was the refrigerator humming. "Elena," I said quietly, "I know about Marcus. I know about the hotel. I know about the videos. I know everything." She didn't deny it. Instead, tears filled her eyes instantly. "Danny, I'm so sorry. It started as flirting. Then it became more. I felt invisible here. The promotion, the pressure, feeling like I was just a wife and mother. Marcus made me feel desired again. Alive. I never meant for it to go this far." Her voice broke. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "You brought me flowers and suggested renewing our vows while you were sleeping with him," I said. The words tasted like ash. "You looked me in the eye every single day and lied." The confrontation lasted hours. She cried. She begged. She admitted the affair had become physical 5 months ago. She swore it was over, that she had told Marcus that morning it had to stop. I didn't know whether to believe her anymore. I told her I needed her to leave the house for a while. We would figure out co-parenting, but the marriage, as we knew it, was over. Elena packed a bag that night, moving temporarily to Rachel's apartment. The sound of her suitcase wheels on the hardwood floor still echoes in my memory. 3 days later, Marcus showed up at my school during lunch break, asking to speak with me man-to-man. The kitchen table confrontation crystallizes months of suppressed emotions into raw action. Daniel's calm presentation of evidence masks deep grief and rage, while Elena's immediate tears and apologies reveal overwhelming guilt mixed with self-justification rooted in feeling invisible. Her suggestion to renew vows just days earlier transforms from hopeful gesture into profound betrayal in hindsight, intensifying Daniel's sense of humiliation. Physical actions, pulling his hand away, asking her to leave, directly reflect his emotional boundary setting after prolonged internal turmoil. The long dialogue allows both characters to express fear, pain, and regret, highlighting realistic psychological responses to discovered infidelity. Sophie's presence upstairs raises the emotional stakes, forcing restrained intensity rather than explosive anger. This climax demonstrates how accumulated micro-emotions finally erupt into decisive behavior, shifting the power dynamic from deception to painful truth. Elena's actions show the consequences of avoiding difficult conversations about marital dissatisfaction, while Daniel's decision to separate immediately reflects a protective instinct toward his own healing and their daughter's stability. The divorce was not bitter, but it was heartbreaking. We sold the house with the vanilla-scented candles and the kitchen where Sophie once learned to make cinnamon rolls. Elena and I worked out a fair co-parenting schedule. Sophie continued her violin, now playing pieces that carried a new, deeper melancholy. Marcus disappeared from Elena's life after I calmly told him at the school parking lot that if he ever contacted my daughter or came near my family again, the videos would find their way to his soon-to-be ex-wife and his employer. He left town within weeks. Elena went to therapy. So did I. We both learned that the slow erosion of emotional connection had left space for someone else to step in. I discovered I had become complacent, wrapped in the comfort of routine, forgetting to truly see my wife as a woman with needs beyond being a mother and partner. A year later, I live in a smaller house near the school. Sophie spends half her time with each of us. Elena and I have reached a place of respectful distance. We can sit together at Sophie's violin recitals without tension. I still teach history, still believe stories matter. My own story taught me that even the most beautiful marriages can fracture when truth becomes optional. Sometimes on quiet evenings I sit on my porch, listening to the distant sound of neighborhood children playing, and I feel a bittersweet peace. The marriage ended, but I found parts of myself I had forgotten existed. For the first time in years, my life feels like it belongs fully to me again. Betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the person who once knew you best. The real question is whether we can rebuild ourselves stronger on the other side of the pain. I did, and I believe you can too. This narrative arc explores the slow unraveling of a long marriage through emotional and physical infidelity, highlighting how complacency and unaddressed needs create fertile ground for betrayal. Daniel's journey from comfortable denial to painful awakening and eventual empowerment illustrates classic stages of betrayal trauma: shock, investigation, confrontation, grief, and gradual reconstruction. Elena's actions reveal the dangerous consequences of seeking validation outside the marriage instead of communicating dissatisfaction, while layered secrets, the hidden folder, financial transfers, friends' complicity, demonstrate how one deception inevitably spawns many others. The story emphasizes psychological realism. Children sense tension long before adults admit it, small micro-changes signal deeper problems, and recovery requires individual accountability rather than mutual forgiveness. Daniel's growth from betrayed husband to self-possessed man shows that personal empowerment often emerges from the ashes of destroyed illusions. The double betrayal, emotional/physical plus the vow renewal suggestion, deepened the wound, but also accelerated necessary change. Broader themes include the fragility of trust built on routine rather than active connection, the moral complexity of secrecy, both Elena's affair and Daniel's surveillance, and the redemptive power of truth even when it destroys. Ultimately, the narrative affirms that while marriages may end, human resilience allows new chapters to begin, quieter, wiser, and more authentic. Nearly half of long-term relationships face similar crises. This story illustrates one path through devastation toward reclaimed personal agency and emotional freedom.